Hey, this song is probably the reason why they invited me to come play this event. We saved you something special for the end. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I got 5 years for growing weed. They wanted me to tell on people, and I didn't want to tell on nobody. But you know, it's legal now, and there are a few things I would like to say. I grew weed for Willie Nelson. I grew weed for Snoop Dogg. I grew weed for the love of freedom. I grew weed for God. And I grew weed for New York City. I grew weed for LA. I grew weed for the great state of Texas. I grew weed for the USA. And I grew weed for little Billy Clinton, though we did not inhale. I grew a whole bunch for heaven and a little bit for hell. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grew weed for the FBI. I grew weed for the DEA. I grew weed for the lawyers to make it illegal someday. And I grew weed for the prisons who locked me away. I grew weed for the stitches just to give them bitches something to say. And I grew weed for Wiz Khalifa. Well, I was on the inside. Folks say, how could you do that? Well, I did it with my mind. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grew weed for my neighbors. I grew weed for my friends. I grew weed for Martha Stewart, Joe and Seth Rogen. And I grew weed for Beyonce, Rihanna, Jay-Z and crew. I grew weed for your mama and your daddy too. I grew weed for the sick, grew it for the poor. I grew a little for my own head, and then I grew some more. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grow a lot on the farm today, but I don't grow weed no more. Now that it's illegal, I just buy it from the store. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seeds. I grew weed. Thank you all, man. Thank you so much.